Hi Aries, come on in. Good to see you. I'm Nigel and I'm about to do your Aries November 2019 reading. I brought a pen with me because in this particular deck, which is the Thoth Tarot deck, there is often a lot of very interesting symbology contained in the cards, which I shall point out to you. Because they do aid sometimes in the meaning, but the meaning is, of course, dependent on where the card lies, the energy of the particular card, the question as to whether or not one particular card overcomes another because of its element, or whether they cancel each other out, such as fire and water. So there's a lot of things to bear in mind. As is our usual practice, I'll take 5 because that's all we need. By the way, I will point out that I have uploaded your 2020 yearly reading. And so you can find that on the playlist on my channel, or just search Nigel Aries 2020 and that will take you to the reading, which is a very comprehensive reading for the year coming ahead. So if you are interested in that, it's there for you. Anyway, let us get things underway now, shall we? That will do the trick. Let's see what we have in store for my Aries friend here. Oh, I love doing readings for Aries. Here we go. Let's see what there is first. That's come out. The Sun. Isn't that a great card for Aries? The Sun. This is jumping out. The 10 of Cups. This is there. The Knight of Cups. Well, might well be an interesting person in your life. And these two have just fallen out, so I will take them both. And they are... what is it? It's the 4 of Wands, completion, and the 3 of Cups, abundance. Why don't you come down, sit down next to me while I do this reading for you. All right, now for the highly talented and attractive Aries. Here we go. Oh, by the way, this deck, of course, I am not using. Rather, I'm just going to let it sit here and learn, just pick up this spiritual energy. I'm going to deal with this first card of yours, which is the Sun. And what a fantastic card for you to have. Well, let's have a look at the Sun and see what it has to say. Now, first of all, quite obviously, it is governed by the Sun, the Lord of the Fire of the Word, I call it, and there's some imagery in here which I think you might find interesting. First of all, there is the Sun itself, and if you look closely at this area here, that looks like a lotus petal which is opening up. The reason why that lotus petal is opening up has got to do with this little marking which is down on the corner, which is a Hebrew letter meaning re'in, which means head, and it refers to the crown chakra, which is one of the chakras in the body, but the one in which is closely connected to the spirit. It is said that when the initiate becomes aware of the divine presence, then it is as if the sun has burst into light, and it is as if the petals of the lotus bloom, and that is what that is an association to. What's also interesting here is I think that you can see around the edges are the zodiac signs. And where are you? Yes, there's you there. There's Aries. And there are the 12 flames coming out, which represent the 12 signs of the zodiac. And what is important also from the point of view of this deck is that they have made the Sun also have some smaller indents here. You can see there are 3 between each of the large flames that go out. Those 3 relate to the decans, and this is particularly good for you because the three decans of Aries are ruled respectively by by Mars, by the Sun, and then by Venus. Now that's also going to be important when we get to this card here. So if you're born something around March the 31st through till the 10th of April, this is a particularly good card. And it's also great for you anyway, because the Sun's energy in that center decan is going to pour into you during this period. There are two children down here. We've seen them before, not in this spread, but they appear in the Fool card and in the Lovers cards. They refer to, according to the developer of this deck, to the twin natures of the Egyptian god Horus. The male child has red wings, which are fire. The female child has yellow wings, which are air, and they are butterfly wings, which goes to show freedom. And in fact, their legs are crossed in the way that you might have seen the hanged man have his legs crossed in the past. And this means that the children have that, but their arms are free. That is, they're breaking free of this boundary which is around them. But it's not an uncontrolled energy. Rather, it is an energy for you which is disciplined and which is being put to good use. They are dancing on two discs here, and these discs refer to the previous aeon in the mind of the developer of this deck, which talked about a sacrificial god. The new aeon coming in here says that the idea of sacrifice, and I agree with it, that the idea of sacrifice, as far as humanity is concerned, is about as useful as an appendix. There appears to be a rainbow-like aura around this area here, and this rainbow color refers to the element of water, and in Greek mythology, water was associated with the raising of consciousness. And the green in the background here, and what looks like this green hill, is a sign of great fertility and productivity in your life to come. So the sun is the source of life and represents success and abundance, and this is going to follow you during this period. The energy of the sun is going to get you through any tough times which you've had. The sun is going to illuminate your path after what might seem to you to have been something of a trying time. And I think it's also saying that you should look at these children down here and have the same outlook on life as they do, and that is to say, I'm free. I am free. And you are. Nobody can control your mind. People can put you in chains, but they can never chain your mind. And never let anybody chain your mind. And you'll come to the realization that should someone insult you, for example, and try to chain your thoughts, that they will be rebuffed by you, and it is only them that harm is occurring to. Usually I think what I found myself is that when people are drawn to this card, it's an indication that issues of co-relationships and teamwork are in the foreground, going into partnership, involved in creative partnerships or projects with others, or it can sometimes relate to a time of restructuring of a long-standing relationship. Someone who could be a lover or someone who could be a close friend. I'd ask myself, what task or project is on the agenda for you now? And I'd have this thought in mind that I am in harmony with the divine light which fills and guides me, and it sure does. Let's turn now to this card here, which is the Four of Wands. Well, the first thing that I'll say about, and it's talking about, apparently, completion, but there's much more to it than that. Now, the Four of Wands, the first thing is that you'll notice the number 4. Well, I love the number 4 because the 4 is all about giving. It's about pushing out to other people. It's about, if you like, the outward expansion of love and goodwill. It's an area of divine emanation, and I'll talk some more about those when we get to this 10 of Cups which you've drawn and which is here. It's an area of divine emanation which is, for me, associated with the planet of Jupiter, and which is particularly fortunate and brings good luck and good fortune for you. I think what's also the case is that we can see, well, first of all, I call this card the Lord of Perfected Work. It is Venus ruling the third decan of Aries. Now, you know before how I said that your sign, as are all the signs, are divided into 3 decans. The first for you is Mars, the second is the Sun, and the third is Venus. Well, Venus is the planet here in Aries. Now, Venus is very much associated also with 2 other signs, isn't it? Both Taurus and Libra, but I have a very, very strong Libra association with this. Look at this color green in the background. This color green refers to me esoterically to Venus itself. So there's a very strong attribution to Venus. Look at the doves. These doves on here are very much associated with Venus, and these ram's heads, of course, are Aries. Now you'll notice that there are 8 spokes which are coming from the center of the wheel, and the 8 spokes are reminiscent of a mandala, which is, well, a Tibetan, Buddhist and Hindu practice that says this is an object which allows one to focus upon, to commune with the divine. And the gold circle that surrounds it is one which is talking about divine protection. And here is the flame of the divine coming up from within it to you. So here we have Venus in Aries. Well, what do you make of that? Because ordinarily we'd say that if Venus, because Aries, as you know, is ruled by Mars, and if Venus is to come across and sit into Aries, it means it's got to sit next door to Mars, and Mars is aggressive. Mars is masculine. Mars is feeling hungry and hasn't had anything to eat and is temperamental and short-tempered. And yet Venus is of beauty and love. And rather than having the fireworks that we might normally expect, we rather have Venus exercising what I think is her feminine charm and soothing words and battering eyelids, perhaps, which operates to subdue the normally aggressive and rambunctious Mars. And in fact, what happens is that there is in fact an attraction between the two. And you might therefore find that you look at somebody else who you've dismissed before and say, well, I'm now attracted to this person, and they may feel the same way about you. Or it could be something that you have decided previously not to pursue, such as a hobby, a work, or an area, a part of work, that now you're saying to yourself, do you know what? I think I might give it a go. I think I might try this out. It can also represent something needs to be completed despite a desire for you to move on to new things. And this can relate to work or to new relationships or to a new dynamic within an existing relationship. It could also relate to yourself, where one part of you wants to go in this direction, whereas another part of you wants to go in that direction. So be under no surprise if that happens to be the case during this month. I'd say that completing the old frees me for the new. And if there is some tension between you and somebody else, now is a good time to clarify and resolve the interaction and complete the old. That's a great card for you, particularly sitting underneath that Sun card as it did. Are you learning here? Good. Let's have a look at this character, the Knight of Cups. Well, the first thing that I'll say about knights is that esoterically they relate to fire. They're fire. And cups, of course, is the suit of water. And so therefore we have the fiery part of water. And if you are to put fire and water together, what do you get? Well, you get conflict. You get difficulty. They weaken one another. They are antagonistic to one another. And so what we have here is somebody, I think, who could have some internal battles going on within themselves. If it's somebody that you know, I'd say it could well be. Now, cups, of course, is the suit of water, but I would say it's probably someone who is a Pisces, or indeed, even though it's an air sign, I think it could well be an Aquarius. Because I feel that this figure has a degree of independence and is hard to pin down, but nevertheless he's a humanitarian. And I think he's someone who's very sensitive and has a dream-like nature. But he can be unreliable, I think. Let's have a look at him. Well, first thing we notice is this, is that he's a king and he's riding a horse, but he's not wearing a helmet. The reason why he's not wearing a helmet is because he doesn't intend to get into any battles, and he's not going to be around long enough to deal with any conflicts. He's holding up here a cup, probably the Holy Grail with Cancer, another water sign on top of it. His suit of armor is in green, which deals with creativity and with fertility, I suppose. A white horse dealing with purity and vision. This thing here looks to me like it's a peacock, and this is the peacock's tail that's coming up. Now he's jumping over the peacock. Now in the West, the peacock has been the sign of vanity and ego, whereas in the East, it's a sign of consciousness and self-awareness and awareness of the interaction between the divine and the human. So it's possible that this is a person who can have some great degree of spiritual attainment associated with them, I think. But what does this have to say for you? Well, if it's a person, I think it's someone with commitment issues, someone who is amiable but passive, attracted to excitement, I think. Someone who has an unsustainable enthusiasm, but who is sensitive and yet really rather shallow. I mean, deep down, this is somebody who is really rather shallow. He is mostly passive, I think, with the qualities of Venus or of a weak Jupiter. He's amiable in a passive way, but he's on the whole so superficial that it's hard to reach his depth. His name, I'd say, is written in water. Well, the Lord of waves and waters, the King of the hosts of the sea. That's what I call him. And he is, in this deck, as I say, the only knight without a helmet. There is not a lot of depth to his personality because the combination of the elements, I think, within him, fire and water, make his inherent nature one of conflict. Here's what we can say about him, though, is that he talks to you of inner contentment and great happiness, which radiates outwards to enrich those around you, either emotionally or spiritually, and I think that's going to be the case for you. I think you need to be careful that you don't become uncertain of yourself and feel that you can't get what you want in love or relationships. It's probably the case that you may have moments of self-doubt where you need reassurance from others. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you are always so giving that it's quite permissible to come and take every now and again. And it's possible because of this lack of self-confidence sometimes, or this uncertainty about yourself in periods where you might lack energy or inspiration. But this might be a necessary respite from what I feel is probably a more active and creative time which you've been going through. Now, this person can be male or female, and at best, if it's another person other than yourself, because it could be someone in your life, they're loving and generous, supportive and tender. They can be capable of, as I said, high spiritual achievement because he's leaping over this peacock. But they're not someone who's in your life for very long. I will say this about them, though. and the gay and lesbian community can please make the necessary adjustment. They like the opposite sex, and the opposite sex likes them. This is a person who is ruled by emotion, not very practical, I don't think, and someone who really try to flatter a partner rather than pay their share of the expenses. They're often intensely insecure, needing reassurances, and at worst they are unfaithful, fickle, shallow, highly emotional, and unreliable. Now let me talk about their bad side. No, that's it. They're someone who'd be great fun to be with. They're great fun. They're good in bed as well. They're great in bed, but don't kind of think, as I say, they're not someone who's going to be around in your life for very long. So just be aware of that. Now, you know how I was talking about that those areas of divine emanation. Here for me is a very good depiction of, well, what I would call the Kabbalistic tree of life. And the reason why I say that is this. First of all, what can I say about it? Well, it's the Lord of perfected success, this card. It is Mars ruling the third decan of Pisces. Now, the reason why I'm getting Mars is because of these ram's heads that are here. These are the glyphs of Mars, aren't they? And look at all this red that's around in the background. That's well, you'd appreciate that. So you'd understand the connection with Mars there. And this thing here, growing up, this looks like a lotus, and there is a lotus petal which is opening up at the top. What's also important, I think, is the number of cups that are here. And there are 3, 6, 9, 10. They, without going into the detail of it, they refer to the 10 Sephirot of the Kabbalistic tree of life, starting with 1, 2, 3, which are purely within the mind of the divinity still, going across the abyss into further areas of divine emanation, coalescing here in an area which is close to Christ consciousness or Krishna consciousness. There is the overcoming of obstacles, the creation of form, the putting everything together, and this area here is associated with the moon. And then with a break across here, we then have the material universe down here. And the material universe is represented by the number 10, which this card is, the 10 of Cups. And it is that part which is matter. Everything else above here is spiritual. It's spiritual energy. And here we have the spirit. Well, we have the what would I say? The emergence of matter out of spirit. Now, the Lord of perfected success, Mars ruling, I think the third decan of Pisces, that 9th to the 19th of March. Now, Mars is disruptive, and so it really, well, it interferes with the peaceful nature of Pisces, to be perfectly frank. I think what we have here is the situation where, yes, you have plenty going on in your life emotionally, there's plenty going on, but it's almost like you're full. You know what I mean? And just to put it closer here again, these cups are full and then they spill over because there's no more room in them. And I think that perhaps there's a feeling with you at the moment that there is, in one aspect of your life, a feeling whereby, yeah, the situation which I've got, I like it, but it can't give me any more enjoyment. There's a great deal of emotional passion and vitality, but this is a 10, this card, and so it's going to start to devolve. The energy starts to devolve, and it'll go next into the Ace of Swords. There is a happiness that you have, but in some respects, it's a fleeting happiness. It's short-lived, and it's kind of lost its ability to fulfill you. Now, this might relate to things like consumer goods. You know how you might save up and go, look, I want to get a pair of shoes. And so I save. I go out and you go, yes. Oh my God, the shoes. And then 6 weeks later, they are just another pair of shoes in your closet. And they've lost the ability to give you that happiness. Now, in a relationship sense, if I was looking at this from a relationship point of view, and if that was particularly important, or you were getting a kind of feeling about that, then it can relate to a loss of pleasure with what the relationship brings. Now, it doesn't just have to be an emotional relationship. Well, all relationships are emotional. But it doesn't have to be a close romantic relationship. It can also be a workplace relationship. It can be a third-party relationship with a supplier or with a customer, or in a schoolroom or in a workplace. But there might be something which has opened up in it, whereby a crack's opened up in the relationship, whereby you go, do you know what? I'm going to look for something else to make me feel happy rather than deal with the crack in the relationship. And that thing that you look to make you happy is something which is going to make you, after a little while, bored and saying to yourself, look, I'm back to where I started from. So the thing is to sort out what it is that needs to be done. It's not that you're not happy, but this word here, this satiety that's down here, that means full. It means full. And so you've come to the end of what the thing has to offer. But look, there are plenty of other great things happening for you. Because here we come to the Three of, what is it? The Three of Cups. Let's have a look. The Three of Cups. Well, the first thing that I'll say is this, is that the three for me is a great number, and it's a great number in this card because it refers to numerologically to gestation, to advancement, to creation, almost like a pregnancy. When a woman becomes pregnant and she grows within her a child, that is the sort of feeling that I'm getting, of things growing and building and building. The Lord of Abundance. Well, it is for me Mercury in the second decan of Cancer, 2nd of July to the 11th of July. Now, here we have 3 cups made out of pomegranates, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lotuses which are depicted here. Now, the 8 for me is associated with the planet Mercury. And here's the interesting thing with the pomegranates. In Greek mythology, there was a goddess, Demeter, who was responsible for the fertility of the earth, for the seasons, for growth and fecundity. She had a daughter, Persephone. Hades, sometimes known as Pluto, had his eye on the daughter, and through a crack in the earth, Hades he governed the underworld, the world of the dead. The earth opened up, he came out with his horses, grabbed the child, or young woman, down, raped her, I think, and took her down into the underworld. Now, Demeter, of course, was beside herself and went all over the land looking for her because she wasn't in the field when she went to pick her up. And while she was looking for her, concerned as to her well-being, the seasons came into being. Winter came about. The fertility of the land dried up, and nothing would grow. Anyway, Zeus sent, the king of the gods, sent Mercury. And here's where I get this number from these 8 petals, lotuses, sent Mercury, because he's associated with the number 8 to me, sent Mercury down to negotiate with Pluto or with Hades to let the girl come up. And what he did was, because the thing was that nobody could escape Hades if they had ever eaten anything down there. And the girl had, whether because she was stubborn or frightened or what have you, had never eaten anything. Anyway, he gave her a pomegranate seed to eat. And so because she had eaten just even a seed, she was condemned to stay in Hades. And Mercury negotiated that she should be allowed up into the seasons for 4 months of the year. Some people say 6. And during that period, she rejoined her mother. Fertility came back to the land. And that is why, and then she had to return down for the late fall, or autumn and winter period. So that's why people plant grain in late fall, and it lies dormant during the winter and then grows in the summertime. This sea colour behind her here relates to that number 3 that I was talking about, that sea of fertility. Now, Mercury in Cancer, well, Mercury is the most maternal of signs and well placed in that number 3 with that sea of gestation. And Cancer people communicate pretty sensitively, I think, and they can be, really decent people. But I think what this is saying is that this is talking about here the birth of an idea or a goal for you. Could even be, you might even hear about the birth of a child, is what I'm getting also. You'll be sharing success with others and life will be feeling good for you. And it's a good time for you to tell other people that you love them, certainly 1, 2, 3 people here, because I can tell you, or to boost the morale of other people, because I can tell you that a good word sent for the benefit of somebody else, not for yourself, but for the benefit of somebody else, has great karmic reward and echoes on into eternity. So that's the way it is for you this month. Well, there you go. There is your November 2019 reading. And look, I thought that was fantastic. I really enjoyed doing that. Extremely interesting for me to be able to do that. I love this deck, and I love the messages that were coming through for you. I think that I think you're going to have a great month. Look, the only other thing that remains for me to say is this, that you are a legend, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, bye for now.